But if you don't have a degree, certainly there was opportunity for me. I know plenty of other people who don't have a bachelor's degree, and there is opportunity for them. And in my professional life, I want to make sure that there is opportunity for everybody.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to episode 7 of the What Makes You Different podcast, special edition with Besides Harrisburg. Today we have Nick on the podcast. Nick, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, always. So you and I spoke a little bit before this, and we talked about the difference of definition between red team and penetration tester. Can you give your definition for people who may not understand throughout this conversation what you mean when you say red team?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in this field for about a decade. And I remember there was a point at which people started to feel very strongly about the term red team. I have always viewed the term red team as, anybody who is trying to make things better by discovering and exploiting bugs, and then taking what they found back to the blue team, or the folks who are building the products or building the processes and making recommendations on how to fix it. So to me, it doesn't matter necessarily whether you are looking at a web app, whether you're breaking a piece of hardware, picking a lock, or whether you are social engineering your way through a process. Feel that those are all under the red team umbrella.
Okay. So everything offensive security related, really.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's my definition.
All right. Yeah, I know that some people, in the audience will not agree with that, but that's okay. Yeah, everyone has different opinion.
Absolutely.
There's definitely a gap when it comes to, definitions, right? Everyone has their own definition of penetration testing, red team, blue team, SOC, SIM, you name it. There's some form of definition that no one really understands. So, it's fine. It's fine to be a little bit different. For me, when I hear red team, I think of a more advanced approach. So like a C2 and having, a team that does a lot of bypasses, adversarial emulation. Similarities, they're two separate things, adversarial emulation and red teaming. But, red team is mainly doing C2 stuff, whereas, let's say penetration testing could be more so on the no evasion side, just kind of going at it and just really hoping that you find stuff in a very short amount of time. Whereas red teams, it's a lot longer than just a week's time. It could be a few weeks. Speaking on red teaming, you have a few certifications. Now, maybe not so much pertaining to red teaming, but do you want to go a little bit about your journey within certifications?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I actually started my career, I started off on the internal side of things in systems administration. So the very beginning of my certification journey started with Microsoft certifications, and I got, the MCSA track, and I got MCSA plus security. So learning a lot of very vendor specific stuff, but that also gave me a good baseline of high level technology. So learned a lot about how certificates work, learned a lot about how encryption worked, albeit within that vendor ecosystem. Then from that point, I got a little bit more generic, and I went for the older version of the Security Plus certification. That was a little bit more broad, and I was able to get an understanding of, more of the network security side that I didn't really see as a systems administrator, since I was mainly working on servers and endpoints and things of that nature. And then after that, I tackled the big one, the CISSP. And after achieving CISSP, since I had been in the field for the amount of time that they needed at that point, I then found myself working for a firm that does red teaming and consulting. So from that point, things like some of the SANS certifications, like the GPEN and the GXPEN, became more relevant to what I was doing at the time. So
Wow. So you really
from security, from certification land, I've been through a couple of different programs. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you and I spoke a little bit about certifications and the cost of certifications. They kind of get a little bit outrageous. There's a lot of certifications out there. We can't even keep track of them anymore. And they're very expensive. Don't you think that they're getting a little bit out of hand in regards to price?
Yeah. So I think they're getting out of hand when it comes to price, firstly. And I think that there's a whole other class of certifications that are out of hand when it comes to time commitment. So on the first category, I would say that, a certification that costs you several $1,000s, that's like a college class. That's not, a week's worth of boot camp or something along those
Right.
lines. Such a financial commitment that either you're making for yourself, or if you're working for a company that they're making in you, which usually requires you to give something back to them, like in terms
Right.
of, guaranteed year of service or what have you,
Right.
that creates a lot of friction, I think, which is not ideal when you're really just trying to learn.
Yeah. I
Um,
think that, I don't know if boot camps are a great way to learn. I don't think I've ever done a boot camp before. I know that there are a few, like OffSec does one, I think, for their very advanced certifications. I believe SANS also does boot camps as well. So I guess the higher tier, educational platforms do it. But as far as boot camps are concerned, let's say if we weren't trying to go towards certifications, would you suggest, let's say, Udemy course or TCM Academy, or how would you get someone to learn about cybersecurity? What's the first step?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say personally that the learning aspect of it is what you need to not lose sight of. If you can learn about a topic, you can speak to it intelligently, and that's ultimately going to do more for you than the letters behind your name. If I am here at a conference like B-Sides Harrisburg, nobody sees the letters over top of my head when I introduce myself. What they see is they see that I'm engaged, and they see that, you know, I know what I'm talking about by, the back and forth. And I think that that's, kind of one of the main things that I tell people who are new in the field. These days, not even having a cert is going to be a guarantee that your application or your resume, will be read by a human ultimately. Like, it seems like the hiring landscape is such that, there are a lot of applicants for every position that's out there. And I'm hearing from a lot of folks who are putting lots of applications out there and not even getting interviews. So I would say that person to person interaction where you're getting to know somebody is going to be key to really getting into the field at this point in time.
Totally. And would you say that degrees are really worthwhile within our landscape right now?
As somebody who never finished his bachelor's degree, I would say that there are advantages and trade offs. Certainly, there are jobs that 100% require a degree. There are some companies that will only hire people with a degree for various reasons. Some of those may be legal reasons, some of those may be cultural reasons within that corporate culture. And that is the reality. But if you don't have a degree, certainly there was opportunity for me. I know plenty of other people who don't have a bachelor's degree, and there is opportunity for them. And in my professional life, I want to make sure that there is opportunity for everybody. I do feel like those academic formal programs have value, but it's what you do with that value, whether you get it through a degree, whether you get it through a certification. That's what makes the difference to me.
Yeah. I know that, a lot of college students, when they get in, they think that they need perfect grades. Everyone needs an A. Everyone needs to get a 4.0 GPA. Everything is fine. And if you don't, you're not going to make it into the field. Would you say that's the case?
I would say that if that was the case, then I would have to do some serious introspection. I went to college for 3 years for mechanical engineering, did not wind up finishing that degree, and I did not get a 4.0 along the way.
Right.
But
Yeah.
here I am almost 20 years later.
Right. So you defy the odds, at least when it comes to, the modern world saying that you need a degree inside of cybersecurity to really break in, because I don't. I thought that college was actually kind of useless. The only thing that really came out of it was my networking capabilities, right? I got to network with my professors. My professors had an in within the industry, and that's how I broke in. That's how I got a couple of my internships. So in that sense, yes, it did help me. But in the sense of straight education, I don't believe that it did a ton for me.
So, on that, I've got a story for you about college. I originally went to school for mechanical engineering, so not necessarily into computers, but my time at college is why I'm in information security right now. So I was in college in like the early 2000s. And for those who are familiar with that time, that was when malware was a little different than it is now. Wasn't financially motivated. A lot of it was about bragging rights. So there are these two malware gangs, Netsky and Bagel. So they used to basically make fun of each other in their source code. So if you analyze the malware, there'd be little Easter eggs and what have you. I went to a large college where everybody basically had a public IP. There wasn't firewalled. So that went about as well as you'd imagine. Lots of worms going through the network. And so I was working at the residential computing desk at the time. So like the student help desk. And, there are machines getting infected left and right with these worms. These hackers all trying to outdo one another. And eventually it got so bad that the network department was like, all right, that's it. We're just shutting down all the students' ports. And
Right.
then we're going to bring students back online once the student help desk comes in, touches their computer and makes sure that it's clean, whether, we reformat it if it's infected or something like that.
All of a
And
sudden
then,
you turn into incident response.
exactly. And that's exactly what it was. And like that adrenaline of, the pressure being on and needing to perform and trying to figure out, okay, well, what's the best way to install these patches in like literally 10,000 computers in a short period of time when you don't have like a unified platform for WSUS or any of like the intended ways to do that. And so I will say that the strongest steel is forged in the hottest dumpster fires. And I actually made two of my best friends while doing that job, and I'm still in touch with them today. So shout out to the two of you. You know who you are.
That's a crazy story. Yeah, putting you on the spot like that is, especially since, did you have incident response, background or no?
Oh,
Was it,
back then? No,
yeah.
I was a college kid. I had worked at a local electronics store, like installing graphics cards for people.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you had no, so how did you go about trying to figure out and resolve the issue? Or did you have another team come in?
Well, at that point, like we were kind of all in it together. So, we had people of different backgrounds. So we had some IT majors. We had some people who were good at scripting up a couple of things. We had some computer science majors. And then you just had some people who were organized and knew how to get people to follow a process. And so that was pretty much the long and short of it. Everybody, nobody was an expert in security at that time. And so we all just kind of got together and figured it out, and everybody brought to the table what they could.
That's It's a crazy story. I don't even know what I would do. Honestly, I'd probably just say, you know what? Yeah, I can't do this anymore. And I'd probably just leave. Be like, you know what? Maybe this isn't up my alley. Maybe cyber is just not in my career, or IT for that matter. It's just
Well,
not.
we had a couple of people that did do that, and I don't blame them one bit. But at the end of the day, when I looked at mechanical engineering, I'm like, that's just not as cool as what I just did earlier in my college career. So that's the direction I'm going to go instead.
I mean, listen, that's definitely a resume builder, saying that you helped, remove a worm from a network full of students who didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
Was probably a great feeling, considering you were one of the students.
Yeah, it was me and probably 50 other students working at the various desks within campus. It's good stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely difficult. I don't like to quit. I try not to quit, but when it comes to that, I think I would just be too overwhelmed to do anything and just kind of freeze. So I don't know if I'd be able to do it on the spot like that, but I've never heard of anything like that. That's wild. Yeah, it looks like we're running up a little bit on time. Do you have any final thoughts to share with the audience about how to break into the field?
Yeah, so what I will say is that some folks might have been at it for a while and they might be struggling to get a little bit of traction. Just I want you to hear that there are people in the industry that see you, that believe in you, and just try and get out and network and meet those people. And then, one day life will take you where you need to be. Just stay at it. And, if anybody would like to chat, feel free to reach out.
There's obviously a trend happening within my podcast, which is that a lot of people need to network in order to break into the field. And that's something that I stress heavily within every single episode. So thank you for bringing up networking. Nick's LinkedIn will be down in the description. If you do want to check him out, feel free to connect with him, say hi, just comment something related to besides Harrisburg. And, we'll definitely be in touch. But Nick, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And this was fun. Thank you for sharing that story. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around it because I don't know. I've never heard of something so crazy before. Like having college students just trying to figure it out together is wild. But no, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing the podcast. Thank you for being here at Besides Harrisburg.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.